You know, from Striker Online's perspective, we see a huge opportunity for grassroots football to continue competing on the pitch, but collaborating off it. And so we see, and you see it all the time,
Mm.
stream of content coming from, clubs out there, volunteers working really, really hard, on social media, taking photographs, writing reports, coaches working with their teams, going on trips, lots and lots and lots of activity. But and also sponsors, involved but not getting the exposure that they need. The collaboration doesn't yet exist to really give them the kind of return on investment, to give them the exposure, to give them the throughput to sales that makes these sponsorship agreements just be a no-brainer year after year. And the
Mm.
beauty of social media is that social media allows communities like ours, dedicated, volunteer-led grassroots communities like ours, to work together to bring value to each other for the benefit of football. So this is what I'm looking for with you, Mark and Klaaskickz, and what we've decided to do is to work together to bring your value to our community, and in doing so, fill many of the gaps that exist and help clubs. So, for example, you know we want to be able to, and I know you're out there looking for nurseries that are out there, and with us we will promote those nurseries and academies, those clubs that are doing work, and those coaches that have their own little kind of services. I think that there's a few coaches that are dedicated to go into clubs and giving these what's it these kind of nursery classes, courses.
Mm.
So there's a few different dynamics. There's also stuff that the FAI do and things like that. There's Everybody's trying to help the kids start their football journey, and so you're at that point. And so, from a Striker Online perspective, we want to work with other companies and other suppliers that have also significant value to add. For example, Team Fee Pay, they operate in club management, but they also offer a lot of advice in terms of sponsorship, fundraising. Um, One very important area that they're very experienced in is things like helping clubs in design and go through the planning process for new facilities, which is something that we really need to be clubs are have on top of their agenda right now. Another company we're working going to be talking about in the next few days is mysolar.ie, who have some really innovative ideas for clubs to help clubs reduce their electricity bills, especially those clubs that have facilities with kind of LED lighting, and some of them intermediate facilities have flood lighting. Now you can't. There's not much that solar power can do for flood lighting, but it can certainly help offset your brand. So, what I'm trying to say is here, we share the journey that you've gone through because you have come out with something quite new for the grassroots community. At Striker Online, we're dedicated to bringing something new that will help revolutionize the way that clubs, teams, and affiliates communicate with sponsors and deliver value to those sponsors. And
Mm.
so, what we're doing here, Mark, and I know that you're fully on board with this, is we want to show through our collaboration how other people might collaborate with each other within the community. Obviously at Striker Online, we're going to try and guide all this, to try and nurture all this, to provide a structure and a platform. We have the platform, provide the structure, the vibration, so that everybody begins to raise the standard of business collaboration, of sponsorship activation. And so what we're doing is not just about getting your boots into sold through your retail outlets. It's about helping other clubs, teams, and affiliates see that they have value in the content they create. And that's what we want to do. We want to help clubs, teams, and affiliates turn content into cash. And that cash is a new revenue stream that is highly valued by the business community. And I suppose I just wanted to say that to make sure that people understand that. And I wanted to get your input from a business, from somebody that we're going to be collaborating, how you see the value of that kind of an idea, and how you are looking at this from a sponsor commercial partner right now.
Yeah, no, just before I do that, just wanted to ask you a quick question. So when if a club was to work with a company like MySolar, um, what would be the benefits for the club, or what would be the main things that clubs normally need sponsorship for? So you mentioned facilities there. What other things that could have benefit clubs by working with a sponsor?
Okay, so for example, we are going to do work with MySolar.ie because we feel that MySolar has something real value to offer our clubs. So our clubs and our members. So there's both commercial and residential. So
Mm,
sustainable green energy is high on the agenda, right? That's first of all. So clubs have to be looking at. In fact, I'm nearly sure that in the design process of new facilities, they're supposed to have considered all these new, green energy, sustainable
mm,
energy projects as part of that. So it's a very important part of the process.
mm,
So we feel that companies like MySolar have some significant value to add our community. And by working together, by providing access to our community through information led, through webinars, through, there's some really good ideas. Like, for example, may come up with a voucher for a team that wins, let's say, a goal of the month or a penalty of the month or something like that, right?
mm.
That voucher can be used with another partner that we have. Do you get me? So, for example, we're
Mm.
working with DBS Tours and Sports Academy. So they do these amazing tours, which is the highlight of any grassroots football team. So what we want to do is constantly work with all our partners and show how things can be done in a collaborative approach. So, for example, now nothing has been decided in terms of the different campaigns.
Mm.
We have a very interesting campaign coming up, which will be a webinar delivered by MySolar to clubs. And we're going to have a number of these webinars to provide them with the information and to provide them with a very, very unique offering that will be delivered during the webinar. We can't talk about it right now, but a very, very unique offering that is it's almost a no-brainer for clubs. So that's going to be quite interesting. But
Yeah, just on DBS Tours, you mentioned there a very interesting company that you were telling me about the last time. Do you want to tell the viewers just quick about DBS Tours? Because I think you asked me a question the other day, and it was what's the best part of grassroots football or going up? And I had to think about it, and I actually agree with you. It's the trips away. We went on a few of them when we were younger as well, like football trips away. But you want to tell us a bit about DBS Tours? I think it's a great idea.
yeah, so look, one of the things that I noticed in grassroots football, everything is an 80-20 rule. Okay, everything. So, 20% of the teams or clubs in the country will be generating 80% of the content, the memories, the wins, everything. But the not everybody wins tournaments. So it's actually quite difficult to win leagues and win
Mm.
trophies, right? But the what I felt was the trips as a child was the trips, and some of the things that happened in the trips that we won't talk about here. But the 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 most memorable parts of your football journey are the trips that you make with your friends, whether it's to a tournament or to go and watch a match in England or whatever it is, or to see an academy operating, like a professional
Mm.
academy operating. And these trips are available to anybody, and DBS Tours and Sports Academy, who operate out of Sport Ireland, are experts in this. Experts. They've been doing it for years, and they symbolize for me that very important thing. And you see, it is those teams that are most active in fundraising. And because
Mm.
when you go and you decide that you're going to bring your team on a trip, that is not easy. Like, there's a lot involved in that. Generally speaking, you have to go and you have to buy the tickets, otherwise so you have to, there's kind of processes that you can learn from. And then obviously companies like DBS Tours, they do all the hotel, they work with whatever, they've organized everything, so it's a kind of a one-stop shop in that respect. But you do have to organize the flights, and so there's an experience, and not every coach is good at that. It's difficult to
Mm.
do. So it's so important to make it as easy as possible to do, and to make it as affordable as possible to do. And making something affordable is not just about making something cheap. Okay,
Mm.
making something affordable is about helping clubs to fundraise and to gain sponsorship, because the content that you generate at a trip can now live online forever. And that
Mm.
content can help a sponsor to get involved, and a sponsor to get their message across, and a sponsor to feel that they're part of that journey. And those relationships that form at those formative years in this football journey, that can then continue and create a symbiotic relationship that's beneficial to everybody. So I see DBS Tours and the academies they have as a real potential to be able to play around with things, play around with, for example, and I'm not saying we're going to do that, but you can do things like that.
Mm.
Here's a company that are offering something that nearly every grassroots football club, not every, but a lot of them are interested in doing. Right, here's a company that's doing that, and are also independent experts in player development. They have an incredible sports academy, so that they're football through and through. And their CEO, David Berber, is actually a player agent. He's a he's a player
Okay.
agent and manager. So he knows football inside out, and he knows the landscape inside out. So you're not dealing with some company that doesn't specialize in football, that isn't ingrained in football. So we feel that it's a strategically a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And with this product, we're able then to talk to other companies like MySolar, like possibly Greyhound Waste, who have deals available as well,
Mm.
and ways of. So we can actually get this kind of collaboration, so that in a way, everybody wins. Everybody
Yeah.
wins. But most of all, the sponsors who are getting involved with their teams have a sense that there's real commercial viability, that there's a vibration happening, and everyone begins to help each other, because we all want to help grassroots football.
Absolutely. And then the benefit for the clubs as well is you'll be able to kind of afford to go on those trips away. You'll be able to get those facilities that you need in. I know even in our local team, they recently got like they had a sand pitch for a while as well, which is really cool. They have a little Astro, they have a big Astro. Like the better the facilities, obviously the better the level of football can be as well. Sometimes you can play on poor pitches and you'll be running around the muck, especially in December. So again, if you're working with the sponsorship or sponsors and there's a collaborative approach, everybody's benefiting. And again, facilities is a massive part as well. And when you have good facilities, you're going away on trips, it's going to attract more players to your clubs and your academies as well, because people are going to be wanting to be involved in that. Isn't that right?
Exactly. And the value to sponsors, I'll give you an example. So recently there's a club called, and Hanover Harps, that's it, right?
Mm.
And I noticed that they had these training tops, and it was the big letters NUA were on them, and I
Mm.
could see the letters, and I noticed, I said to myself, that's very good the way it's so large on the training top. Now, what I kind of zoomed in and saw that it was NUA manufacturing, okay, and it's part of Glanvie Homes, I think. Now I'm not like fully, I might say things wrong that I'm saying, but I know that
Mm.
Glenvie Homes are part of this as well.
Yeah.
So I zoomed in, got it, and then I just kind of like reposted them, and I said, this is brilliant, because and I asked, by reposting and saying, brilliant to see such, the letters are so big on the jersey, which I think is very good, because you often get sponsors printed on top, and it doesn't do the logo, the sponsor's logo
Mm.
justice. You know what I mean? They're done in the wrong color or whatever. So I always try and highlight when something's done really well. And of course, someone very quickly told me that it was Nua Manufacturing had set up a new factory down there in Carlow, and had a very, very good idea of providing training tops for the entire club. And I thought this was a brilliant idea, right?
Mm.
Because and it was brilliant because of this. Number one, they're not worn on matches, so every one of these players, whether they're kids or adults, were supplied with these training tops, and that meant that they were wearing this on holidays. And so they began to have these photographs being sent from all over the world, like kids on holidays everywhere, and getting photographs with their training top on and sending those back to the social media guy or whatever, and he was putting them up, and I was saying this is great, and it's a great example. And of course, that's just exposure, and from a branding perspective, that's golden. I mean, that's just golden because the sponsors looking at this and said, I'm telling you, any person that was that had that idea and had gone into that office to Newer Manufacturing, it could have been a mother, it could have been a dad, it could have been someone that works in the, you know what I mean? It could have been anything. They can walk back in there now and they can show this and they say that was great. They
Yeah.
love that. Any company, whatever, when they see that, and I suppose that's one of the things I'd like you to touch on, Ethan. So they see that, and then there's so much more that can be done. There's articles that can be written. There's an interview. What we want to do in the sponsors show is we want to offer clubs the ability to have these kind of interviews, like what we're having, a little bit not as detailed, obviously, but what we're having, and we want to talk about their sponsorship, their their current sponsors, the potential sponsors, what kind of social media ideas that they might have, so that all of a sudden then, from that we can write articles on the sponsors, write articles on the club, give it a club profile, and begin, building the tapestry of grassroots football from a more commercially orientated brand perspective that looks to develop, sponsorship activation season after season. And I suppose I wanted to ask you your perspective from like a class, from a business person, from somebody. Am I right, or in thinking that way, that how a CEO might think about when they see their brand showing up on social media like that?
Yeah, so one of the things that's very difficult is, especially when you have a new brand, is trying to get that message out. And if you were able to collaborate with teams and the community, it's just able, like what you said, that was a perfect example. They had the new on the jerseys, they were in different countries, they were sending photos back. Now, they weren't sending photos back because Nua was on it. They were just sending back because it was the jerseys, but Nua just happened to be on it. So it's a perfect example. But in terms of Klaaskickz, we sponsored a GAA team in Walterstown. And again, the nursery section, unbelievable setup and support as well. So we sponsored them, and then they kind of supported us by a lot of their kids bought the Klaaskickz boots. So that's like a perfect example of uh, a startup company and a club. I'm providing them with boots, and they're providing us with exposure, like on social media. They're putting Klaaskickz on all their posts for the nursery section for the year, and it just helps us get the word out. And I mentioned earlier one of our shops, and they're one of our best customers, and that could be down to the sponsorship, that because that club is near that shop again, and people are seeing it all the time. And
Yeah, I mean that's it. There's two things I want to talk about, but before getting back to the rivalry of the two of the teams, which is important, I want to just talk about that in terms of from a strategy perspective. Right now your boots are held in stock in retail outlets all over the country. There's a real sense that the collaboration can exist there, and that again is potential for you.
absolutely, yeah. And then we obviously want more kids playing football. Like I want kids living the football life, really, but it's not all about that. It's about gaining confidence. But yeah, we'd love to be able to promote them nurseries and get more kids involved in football. So let's say we're based in Westmead, but we want, if we were in Galway, for example, we'd be able to get in touch with clubs around Galway and highlight where their nurseries are on, what times they're on, how many kids, who are the coaches. Again, we might be able to highlight the coaches. We have Coach Alex, for example, and Coach Alex has this much experience in the nursery area. He played for teams like this and this. So again, highlighting those nursery programs, and again, both of us sharing them and getting the word out, and maybe they might get 4 or 5 new kids that week, but even that's a success, like compounding.
Actually, you just said something important there, right? Which is, yes, this is where I'm talking about in terms of competing on the pitch and collaborating off it. Very often, because we're sport, we often think competitively off the pitch, when in fact, if you grow participation rates, then you're not fighting for somebody else's kid that's in a different academy. You're not competing for that kid. What you're doing is creating 3 kids where there was just one. So everybody grows and standards grow.